Hello and welcome in.
Please do not leave your luggage unattended on the station.
Welcome to the show.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Off Field. I'm Liv Moods. You say it.
My name's Brandon.
And that's
My name is Nathan.
Nathaniel, if you want to piss him off. But we're here for another episode, and normally I would not be here with these fine fellas on a Wednesday. They normally take it over themselves, but I did not fly to San Francisco this week. Deebo Samuel was in the hospital with pneumonia and fluid in his lungs. He did call me the day before I was supposed to fly out to kind of let me know what was going on. I checked on him yesterday. He is doing much better. He had some x-rays and such and things. So he is on the mend, thankfully. But obviously, when it comes to stuff like that, health over podcasting, always.
Yeah, you don't want to catch pneumonia either, so it's good that you stayed away.
Correct.
Is he staying away from the facility then? Is he playing this weekend? What's going on?
I have not heard anything about whether or not he plans to play. I do know that he was released yesterday from the hospital. So they kept him overnight, I believe, for 2 nights.
Wow.
The one thing, and I remember going all the way back to the Mike Shanahan days, and because this story is very public, Tyrone Braxton is the first player that ever tried to call in sick to the NFL.
Yeah.
I can't say first ever, but it was well noted that he's like, oh, I'm sick, I'm not coming in. The one thing that NFL teams have are doctors and dentists and everything available.
Probably of the highest.
And so look, they know that he's sick, so there's a chance that they might have just obviously get sent home. Maybe they sent medical personnel to check on him. They're not gonna have him come in to send him home because he's been hospitalized. But in general, like if you like, oh, come on in, we're gonna check you out, and then we'll send you to the specialist you need to go to. So it wouldn't surprise me if he's in there, if he's feeling better, but they might keep him away for a day or two.
Yeah.
Which doesn't mean he won't play. I wouldn't bet on it.
He told me that when I initially heard from him and he had called me, he told me that he was like honestly low-key scared at how horrible he felt. He said he could not breathe. It felt like his throat was completely closed. Like it was game day. Him coming out after halftime in street clothes was him making the decision of like, I truly can't even push through it. He could not breathe. So I'm glad he listened to his body for sure.
Athlete.
Right.
At the peak of his power in his 20s to get that sick, you know. I never got sick in 6 years, like never got like have to stay home sick.
Yeah.
Everybody was just like, you come to work, and there's also this like beehive sort of situation that goes there because there's so much testosterone there. It's a very clean environment. And so you're very healthy there.
Yeah.
You're doing a lot of exercise, you're eating well, you're lifting weights, you're vigorously running around, and it keeps you healthy.
Right.
And then you leave that hive environment and then your health kind of goes downhill. But hopefully Deebo's all right, looks after his health.
Yep.
Doesn't worry about this game.
Yeah.
But the pressure's on, right? Because
for sure.
Brandon Ayuk's done. And so it's like, Deebo, we need you. And Juwan Jennings is like coming back from his hip.
To put things in perspective, the healthiest receiver for the 49ers is the one that was
shot.
You sent me that. The one that was just shot in the chest. I mean, if you look at it that way, it's like, one, so happy to see Ricky back out there. What an incredible story.
He's like, Deebo, pneumonia. I got shot, and I'm going to play this week.
That's crazy. But yeah, the 49ers kind of falling apart, and I think we talked a little bit on the show about seeing that coming. Like, I think you had mentioned, not their luck running out, but they've been a very healthy, strong, highly offensive team, and, you know, a lot of things have to go right to win a Super Bowl, a championship of any sport, of any caliber. But the 49ers are pretty broken right now.
It would have been fun to see them at full strength because you know how much you don't get revenge for missing a Super Bowl or losing a Super Bowl by winning in the regular season. We saw that with the Broncos, who lose to the Ravens, who win the Super Bowl and score 7 touchdowns in the next year, but nobody cares. The game that mattered, they lost in the playoffs. Ravens won the Super Bowl. But no Christian McCaffrey, even though Jordan Mason has been good. And really any back in that system seems to be, but no Christian. Ayuk gets hurt in the middle of the game. Deebo has to check out because he's not feeling well.
Yeah, bad.
And so you did.
Kittle also is like a day-to-day situation.
So you didn't get the Niners at full strength against the Chiefs team. That they're banged up, but their biggest players still played minus Pacheco, and so it would have been fun to see that rematch at full strength, even in week 7 or whatever.
And what the Niners have going for them, though, is they're in a pretty weak division right now. And so if they can find a way to win that division, and it might only take, 9-8, 10-7 to win that division if they can. Obviously, they host a playoff game. Mike Shanahan's goals for us going into every season wasn't necessarily we're going to win the Super Bowl, although it always, that was the goal, but it was win the division. Win the division, you get a home playoff game, you get to play a playoff game in front of your fans, and then anything can happen after that. You win the division and you get a bye, then you rest, then you host a playoff game, then you just got to win one more and you're in the Super Bowl.
Yep.
So the Niners know what it's like to play December, January, February football. They just got to get across the finish line and make it into the playoffs, And I was thinking about it because, like, who won September and October last year? Nobody fucking knows.
The Eagles.
Exactly, right? We talk about like nobody remembers that shit.
I didn't remember until you told me.
Yeah, right.
Right. You had to remind us.
Right, and so it's like, hey, man, this is a war of attrition. You got to if Christian McCaffrey gets healthy at the right time, and Deebo and George Kittle.
Yeah, because
obviously,
who knows about McCaffrey? I mean, we've been seeing him getting some specialized treatments, and he's apparently responding well to those. That could be a late season ad that can turn their season around.
Absolutely,
so
but he's got these Achilles tendonitis in both legs, and I had
to be careful with that. I would imagine.
Chris Harris on Dumb Jock a couple weeks ago, he was talking about how he dealt with the same thing. And I dealt with this, like it happens, and then it just nags you. It just bugs you and bugs you and bugs you. And there's nothing that can heal it but rest. And you can't rest in the middle of a season. So he's in a tough spot because he's one of the best players in the league. He's making a lot of money. His team relies on him. And here he is sitting and watching. It's hard.
I was talking with someone about there's apparently it's the same way in UFC and stuff. Like the cover athletes, after they've been on the cover, they always have like a curse going
Madden
on.
Curse.
Yeah.
The Madden curse has been dispelled a bit only because
but Patrick Mahomes 2 years ago.
No, but not every single Madden player.
Every single one.
That is definitely not true.
Every single one.
Every single one of them has also contracted an STD that year. It's true.
I don't know if we have confirmation on either of those two things. The injury on the cover, I can definitely at least fact check here in a minute. But it is a bummer because I don't know if you know this. Christian McCaffrey actually grew up here. Played at Valor Christian. His dad Ed played for the Broncos.
Oh, is that right?
Super Bowl teams, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And his three brothers also good football players in high school as well.
Dylan went and played at Michigan for a little bit.
Yeah, and Luke is on the Washington Commanders currently. So
Max
is a coach.
His coach. Football in that family.
Yeah,
football is life in that family.
I may have
shout out to the mother also, by the way.
Lisa, she was a soccer player.
She's holding it down.
Her dad was the second fastest man in the world in like 1960 also. So they get some of that speed from mom's.
BK is the McCaffrey stalker.
Yeah, wow.
What's her security
birthday?
Number? Read. I mean, silver medal in the Olympics. Silver medal in the Olympics is not that weird of a thing to know.
I don't know, man. It's 1960. It's pretty long. When dinosaurs roamed the earth, right?
Yeah, dinosaurs were alive and well.
Wait, there were sports in 1960?
Nah.
There's actually still dinosaurs that roam the earth.
They're called birds.
They're called crocodiles and alligators.
Birds are descendants from dinosaurs.
Well, yeah, but I don't care about them.
I just want to go visit Jurassic Park.
My son is super into dinosaurs.
Jurassic Park is fake, right?
You know what's crazy? They've changed.
Is he yanking my chain?
No, they actually did clone. There's some dinosaurs like alive right now. They cloned them. You don't know that?
But you can't go because the island's overrun.
Yeah.
By what?
Dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs.
Oh, I'm sick of this game. He's yanking my chain again. I don't ever know when they're being serious.
She's sick of this game.
You know what's weird though? Like the dinosaur names changed from when we were kids. Like remember? No.
BK's about to lose his mind. He's about to lose it. He needs a second.
Do you remember the Brontosaurus?
Yeah,
they don't call it.
It did change names.
Yeah, they don't call it a Brontosaurus anymore.
What do they call it?
Like Brachiosaurus and all these weirdosauruses. Like
maybe it's their
the plant eater with a super long neck used to be a fucking Brontosaurus.
Yeah, because I was just at the Liberty Science Center in New York, and it said, I'm like, that's got to be a Brontosaurus. I remember thinking that, and I think I've seen it a couple times in my kids' dinosaur books. They just change names on us.
What's the one with the big, they look like rocks on the back on their
Stegosaurus?
Back? Stegosaurus. I'm a Stegosaurus girly.
Yeah. Velociraptors are pretty cool.
Stegosauruses remind me of rhinos.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Kind of same build.
That's why some of these animals, you can see them being descendants of dinosaurs and birds as well.
Just like we're descendants of monkeys.
Pterodactyls. Some dinosaurs had feathers and like scales. Just like Christian McCaffrey. And so
let's get to the second quarter.
Yeah, you wish.
Yeah. And 2-minute warning.
Yeah.
Here we go.
We're tweaking some things on the
Guys,
Flag on
we
field.
see your comments, by the way. We
Yeah.
know that we like to yap and gab over here, and sometimes it has
and,
nothing to
and
do with
teach
football.
people things.
But we just
mostly
have a
live.
really fun time, and sometimes we get lost, and then we're like, oh, crap, we're live. Let's talk a little bit of football. So we're going to structure this a little better. 4 quarters on this show, 2-minute warnings. We're going to start throwing flags when we get out of line,
Yep.
and it'll keep us together. So, fellas, let's jump right into the AFC West.
Okay.
Big trade news this morning, DeAndre Hopkins to the Chiefs, okay? And the Chargers taking an L to the Cardinals, which I was hoping for just as a Broncos fan. So Broncos are sitting at what, 4-3, and they're 4-2?
If they're 3-3, if the playoffs start today, the Broncos are a half game up on the Chargers. And obviously they go to LA in December, right around Christmas. If the playoffs started today, and we know this is a dumb exercise, but we do it anyway, the Broncos are 7th. They would play the 2nd-seeded Texans in Houston. The Chiefs, undefeated, would have the bye.
Yeah.
And so they would go to Houston, and then if they were to win, they would go to Kansas City the next week.
Okay.
If the playoffs started today. But we know if the Broncos finish 14-3, maybe they are the number 1 seed. Because that would have meant they beat the Chiefs twice.
Yeah.
And made the
Is
Chiefs
this
lose.
Chiefs team a beatable team? Nate.
I think so. I mean, they're going to get beat eventually. I don't think they're going to finish 17-0, go on a playoff run and win the Super Bowl and finish 20-0 for the first time in the history of the game. I think they're beatable. Broncos beat them last year.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yeah, that belief is there. They got a new quarterback. They got a new system. But they're just so tough. The Chiefs are so tough and so good in the moment of truth. Like they make the plays they need to make at the end of the game to win it. Patrick Mahomes threw 0 touchdowns against the Niners, but he also had some big runs in them.
And he threw what, 3 interceptions? 2 interceptions.
Yeah, but Brock Purdy threw 3, right? So he was able to outplay.
I saw
Brock.
that. I saw this. Just awful. DeAndre Hopkins goes from having Will Levis as a starting QB to the NFL's interceptions leader.
That is true. Patrick Mahomes
DeAndre
is the
Hopkins
interception
may
leader.
be over,
I
over
forgot
the hill.
I'm not lying because I saw the first thing I saw when the news broke. Our pal Chris Harris had tweeted, "Oh, he said Surtain and Moss are still going to strap him up."
Yeah.
Okay, great. That'd be cool to see. Fine. I legitimately did not remember that Hopkins, because I drafted him on no fantasy teams, and I don't think I'm in 8 fantasy leagues. I don't think I've played against him yet because no one's playing him. I forgot that he was in the league.
I'm going to be honest, I kind of did too.
But an anytime touchdown kind of bet or like a daily fantasy, he's going to have, I don't know if he's going to have too many 100-yard games, but he might have 1 or 2 where he sneaks. He's definitely going to have a handful of touchdowns. He's another weapon, and he can go up and get a football in the red zone. Might open some things up for Travis Kelce. Oh, your wind chimes are breezy in here. Breezy in here. But so is that Deebo telling us how he feels?
No, that's my Ring camera.
Okay.
Oh.
Someone's walking their dog, I'm sure, or
Maybe
something
Deebo's-
like
It
that.
goes off
Maybe a
when someone
package.
walks their dog by the house.
Yeah.
Mine
It's
does.
annoying.
Mine does every time there's any big vehicle, delivery truck, trash truck.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it's like the loudest notification on an iPhone. I don't understand why it's like.
You can change the settings. Or just turn your ringer off.
Yeah, that's one way.
I forgot to do that. So
But there was a time when DeAndre Hopkins was like the bee's knees.
he's the it guy.
I think he and Antonio Brown each had 136 receptions in the same season. You looked that up.
Well, no, but he had a stretch where because Antonio Brown had as good a 4-year stretch as anybody,
Yeah.
like Hall of Fame level, but Hopkins was right there.
Yeah.
And similar to Andre Johnson, who is bona fide first ballot Hall of Famer, it wasn't like Hopkins was doing it with. He did have Deshaun for a couple of years, but then they traded him to Arizona, and he's dealing with. He didn't have the same quarterback, and he was still effective everywhere he was for a 4 to 5 year stretch. It was pretty remarkable.
They were throwing him the ball every play, and he was catching everything. I mean, I drafted him on my fantasy team, and he was just awesome. I mean, he was catching so many passes.
You could turn your ringer
This
off.
freaking guy-
You know
my
what?
computer.
You could turn
You
your
shouldn't
ringer
have done
off.
that.
That's my
You shouldn't have
computer.
done that. You shouldn't
That's
have
my
had that
computer.
on.
My phone wasn't ringing.
Should have
Your
been off.
watch, your
Again,
computer.
not making any noise, just my computer. Apologies. He had the stretch though, 3 years with the Texans, 96, 13, 78, 13 scores and 17, 115 catches, 15, 72, 11 scores and 18. Did Deshaun Watson play off the jump? Because then that would have been his rookie year. 17 was his rookie year. 19, 104 catches, 1165, 7 scores, and then first year with the Cardinals, 115 catches,
Wow.
6 scores, 14.
So how many straight seasons is that with 100 receptions?
Oh, let's back up too. Sorry, it's
Yeah,
basically
let's
let's go to 14.
1947.
No, 76 catches, 1,200 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 14. 111 catches, 1,500 yards, 11 TDs. 78, 954 yards, 4 TDs, 96. So basically, in a 7-year stretch, he had 400 catch seasons, 96, 76, 78.
That's a Hall of Fame.
That's a Hall of Fame
trajectory.
resume type trajectory.
Yeah.
Although if Brandon Marshall's not getting in and Steve Smith isn't in yet, he's probably below them right now.
Mhm.
A ring this year and contributing, if
Yeah.
the Chiefs do that, changes the narrative on this dude who only had 15 catches, only has 15 right now. Still at 75 and 1,000 last year.
Brandon Marshall, the only Broncos receiver in the history of the organization with 3 consecutive 100 catch seasons. Rod Smith didn't do it. DT didn't do it. B. Marshall did it.
B. Marsh.
He was a very dominant receiver.
Devon Vele may have a shot. He had 8 catches his first game.
This season? Maybe not.
Starting next year.
Not this year.
No, Brandon Marshall is going to be in that like Hall of Very Good because he never played in a playoff game.
Yeah, that's wild.
But he is a Hall of Fame caliber talent for sure. But Hopkins' resume is a Hall of Fame resume. He's got 79 touchdowns. If he plays 3 years with the Chiefs, that's a lot. He get to 100 touchdowns. Like Mike Evans has 100 touchdowns. That's a Hall of Famer.
But if you look at the Chiefs, look at the Raiders, look at the Chargers, the Broncos competition in this division, and the Broncos have to go on the road and play the Raiders still, have to go on the road and play the Chargers, have to go on the road and play the Chiefs, and they're also playing the Chiefs here. So there's 4 more games against AFC West opponents, and 3 of them are on the road. But both of the LA and the Vegas road games are not really home games.
Those are home games
for those guys. Those are Broncos home games, you know, and so that's pretty cool. They're not in the NFC North or something where it's like these territorial just fucking gang wars where you go to these stadiums, you know, it's death, you know, by fucking flogging and shit, whatever's going on. Like they're there to kill you, right? Where you go to Vegas, everyone's there to party and just have fun, and it's like Vegas, so it's like half Broncos or probably 2/3 Broncos. You go to LA, it's SoFi Stadium, it's a $5 billion stadium, and no one in LA gives a shit about football. So you go there and it's all Broncos fans. So the Broncos are set up to be able to at least finish 3-3 in the AFC West.
You know what Vegas honestly is? Having been to a handful of games there now the last couple of years, it's certainly more Broncos fans than Raiders fans, but then it's also just football fans that are in town for the weekend.
Yeah.
They're gambling, they're having a Vegas
They
weekend.
just want to go to a football game.
And then they go to a football game because they want to check out the stadium. And so it is not the only time the Raiders have a home field advantage is in LA against the Chargers or even against the Rams last week. There were more Raiders fans there than there are Rams fans. There are more Rams fans currently in the world than Chargers fans, but it's still a home game for the Raiders are the most popular team in LA, and the Niners are the second most popular team.
Well, we've got the Raiders also signing Desmond Ridder to their off of the Cardinals practice squad. What do you guys think about that move?
Turmoil. The Raiders just in turmoil. That's not going to do it. You know, like it's very rare where you're going to put a quarterback on your team halfway through the season and he's going to do anything.
He sucked in the preseason. There's a reason he's on the practice squad. He was garbage against the Broncos.
Yeah. So the Raiders just grasping at straws there.
Aiden O'Connell, I guess, broke his finger or whatever. So Gardner had to go back in. You know what Gardner is, you know what he isn't.
Right.
The Raiders, I'll be interested to see with this new Tom Brady involvement in the organization, how much he changes things culturally. How much can he? Because I'm sure there's plenty of stuff that he liked that they did in New England. There's stuff that he brought to Tampa that they didn't like. But then maybe some stuff in Tampa that
just being a dick?
Yeah,
just like
being
what are you
accountable. I think that he.
But how can you do that as a 10% owner guy?
No. I think.
What are you doing?
I don't think it's a 10% owner thing. I think that he is going to be empowered to basically be above Tom Telesco in terms of a football czar. Is the way it made it sound.
Okay. Like president of football operations,
essentially. But as an owner, I don't know what they call him. But
so how do you do that? And you're an announcer at the same time.
Well, you didn't see the restrictions.
I did, but why do both? Just freaking pull the plug on it.
There's certainly a world where
he's not great on TV.
There's certainly a world where he stops doing TV sooner than later and gives that money back to Fox, or breaks that contract, because he can't go into production meetings. He can't walk into another team's facility. He can't be critical of any team in the league. So even if a team has a bunch of stuff going on, obvious things you would comment on, whatever it might be, he's not allowed to really comment on it other than, yep, that's the tough deal. Like, that's all he can say. Doesn't mean he can't call up the coach of every team, can call up the quarterback. Peyton and Eli do that every week. They're not in full-blown production meetings. Peyton's telling a story about how Baker calls him and he's about to honor Dallas Clark, so he gets a 6-minute voice memo. So Tom will get a hold of people, but he's not allowed to sit there and go through it with the coordinators, go through it with the players.
But even just being around other teams and seeing how they perform, and that gives him an advantage going back home to Vegas and crafting a plan for his team probably as well.
Just on game day, seeing the way they operate and paying different attention than he paid when he's a player. Because when you're a player, you're focused on your stuff and you do your routine. But you'll have a time, especially because he's not really allowed to interact. I assume he's allowed to go down on the field pregame. I don't think it's as restricting as you think. What's going to be fascinating is how much does he have his thumb on Tom Telesco and how they shape the football roster, decision-making, coach. I'm not saying Antonio Pierce is going to get fired, but I don't think he's long for this job.
He will be fired after this season.
It feels like it. So it's just good. And Tom Telesco, because the Chargers have plenty of issues, okay? And they have, roster-wise in terms of health. Tom Telesco over the last decade has drafted ridiculous talent in LA.
You've been slurping Tom Telesco.
We could go through their draft.
Well, the Raiders have sucked.
Did you
since
say he's been
he has. I mean, he needs more chapstick.
No, this is his first year. So Raiders haven't sucked.
Every time Tom Telesco comes up.
Yeah, but no, that's with the Chargers.
I'm happy
to give you the Chargers draft over the last decade.
Okay. No,
you can just believe in the Chargers. Well, 2 decades, make it 3. Let's go back to Dan Fouts.
Let's go back to when dinosaurs roamed the earth.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about. Dan Fouts, Eric Coryell.
Let's go back when Lisa McCaffrey's father won a silver medal in the 1960 Olympics.
Hey, don't get mad at me for knowing stuff.
I'm not. You just you think very fondly of Tom Telesco. And so I think there's probably been a lot of very smart football people who've gone through the Raiders organization and haven't been able to make it work because there's higher power at work with the Raiders there.
Yeah.
There's things that get in the way of smart football people implementing their plans. And will this be any different? I don't know. I mean, Tom Brady now and Tom Telesco, who is the second coming, is that going to make the Raiders good? I mean, you had John Gruden there. He's a pretty smart football guy. You got Joshy boy there. He screwed it up too. Like everyone who seems to go there, it doesn't work out, and it hasn't for 20 years. And so I'm just wondering why. I mean,
I'm not saying it will work. I'm curious to see the dynamics at play. That's all. I don't know that Tom Brady knows personnel better than anyone else or will be better at tweaking things in the organization. It'll just be fascinating to see what the Raiders become with Tom Brady heavily involved in football as it's been portrayed will be his role.
I don't know if you guys saw, Aaron Rodgers was on Pat McAfee and he was talking about I know he's not your favorite, but he was talking about
so effing obnoxious.
He is. And it's going to be funny as he continues to go on that show every week when they continue to lose and just gets worse and worse and worse for him. And he just gets more.
He's never had that because he was good in Green Bay and then he was hurt last year.
Yeah. And so he's got to go there every week after a loss and talk about how they're going to right the ship or whatever. But he's talking about how they have to have more fun. They're not having enough fun. They're taking it too seriously, but they got to have more.
He's a fun sucker.
More joy.
Nathaniel Hackett should be able to help with that.
Exactly. If you have Hackett and you're not having fun, how? This is summer camp, right? But Tom Brady was the opposite. He was it's not supposed to be fun. It's not daycare. This is fucking serious. Blah, blah. So would he be able to implement that sort of philosophy in Vegas? Because it was a product of a moment in time in New England, right? And having those players and having Belichick and having the right people around to hold each other accountable. Can you really do that now? Can you have that same style of play, the same style of leadership, the same type of dudes? That's a tough one.
I think that some of these handful of old school coaches are still trying a little. Sean Payton has some of that for sure from his Parcells time. Don't know the way Gerard Mayo's operating in New England and what he's doing differently. But Pete Carroll, old school fun coach, but he's no longer a head coach. Mike McCarthy, who is an older coach, is about to not be a head coach. John Harbaugh, they're around the same age. They're in their early 60s, like Sean Payton is. And obviously Andy Reid, who does run a pretty tight ship, but when you've got the best player in the world and a bunch of other really good players, his personality is not going to dominate the public persona. It's just that he's an offensive mastermind. So I agree with you though, or where you're headed towards. Kids are different these days.
Yeah,
it's a different approach to everything in life, and so I don't know if it'll work. I would think that it won't, and that's why Josh McDaniels trying to do some of that same stuff didn't work in Vegas.
If the Raiders were at halftime and they were getting their ass kicked, and Tom Brady comes down into the locker room and just starts cussing everybody out, would that do the trick? Would that
make them be better players?
Would it?
It won't.
No, that's all. Well, but isn't it about digging down deep and caring and being passionate?
You were in those locker rooms, and you've been in locker rooms your whole life. Digging deep is great, but you still have to have enough good players to make plays, and sometimes you're overmatched.
Yeah.
And so this Raiders roster is not good. They've got a couple really good players: Max Crosby, Wilkins, and they used to have Devontae Adams.
Yeah. Brock Bowers.
He's a hell of a player. Brock Bowers is going to be a Pro Bowler.
Do you think Max Crosby will stay in Vegas much longer?
I mean, according to him, he doesn't want to leave. He wants to. He's got a tattoo on him.
I get it. What would it take? Because you hear people fishing for Myles Garrett. That makes sense, but his contract and him being a true building block there and not wanting to leave Cleveland either. But what do you think it would take to pry Max Crosby? Because you're not trading a 1 for him. So is it multiple 2s?
I don't know. I don't play that game very well. Like what it would take to get a guy. You know what I mean? Like of course. Why wouldn't it be a 1? He's like one of the best players in the NFL. Why wouldn't you give up a 1 for him?
The ones only get traded for quarterbacks, and it doesn't happen very often. I mean, it happened with Russell Wilson, happened with Deshaun Watson. That's about it. Christian McCaffrey got traded for what points value wise, if you believe in the Jimmy Johnson points chart, and most teams do. But it's like a second, a third, and a fourth equals like the back end of a 1 kind of deal.
The back end of a 1,
like the back end
pervy.
of the first round.
Oh, okay.
There's another trade. There's 2 trade rumors coming out of LA involving the Rams, who are on Thursday Night Football, that are both pretty interesting.
Cup and Stafford.
Are we going
right?
to get into that? And is it
it.
time for the third quarter? Have we had halftime yet?
Halftime. Water break. Orange slice. Come on, you guys got to get out here and do these plays and get your act together. You got 5 minutes to take a pee. We'll see you guys out there. Woohoo! Cheerleaders. Fly over. Oh, the dogs playing frisbee. The dogs are playing frisbee, and the high school girls are playing flag football. And now we're coming out.
Have you ever been late coming out from halftime? Because you were taking a number 2.
Nah, I wasn't like a halftime number 2 guy. I was usually like before the game number 2 guy. Halftime number 1 guy.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. But
what about you before a big broadcast? Are you a before, during, or after type of guy?
During. Without even taking a commercial break. I'm like, can you just play a song? Like it's a talk show. Well,
Play a song is hilarious. Okay, so we're now in the third quarter. Let's talk a little bit about the Rams. Yes, there is some conversations about Stafford. Listen, I actually saw this. I saw on Instagram that there were, conversations being had with Stafford and what team. You're sitting there going, who could possibly need Stafford right now? Well, the conversations were happening with the Vikings, and I don't understand that at all. What a slap in the face to Sam Darnold, who's doing everything he's needed to do up until this point. I get it. They just lost to the Detroit Lions, but the Detroit Lions are, if they continue down this road, are playing like a Super Bowl team. That one doesn't make sense to me.
So here's why you make the deal, because the money that's owed to Stafford's still a better quarterback than Darnold. Darnold has played well, but he's also dropped off his production in recent weeks. He still has healthy Justin Jefferson, has a good defense. And you say, okay, we know Sam Darnold's been pretty good. The Rams are kind of working through the idea of a rebuild. They lose Aaron Donald to retirement. Stafford has 2 more years left on his deal next year, but most of the dead money is going to be off after next year as well in terms of the cap hit. And so you could trade Stafford. JJ McCarthy, this is a lost year. Next year, you want him still to back up. He's only 21 right now, I think, still. So you want him to go through the week to week, not the rehab. He's only rehabbing. So you trade Stafford for Darnold. Maybe you're throwing in a pick. They're going to assume the contract. They're going to have Stafford for this year and next. And then when in the final year, it only counts $6.5 million. They don't owe him any cash in 26. McCarthy's ready to go. And Stafford, if he plays, he plays. But Stafford is a better quarterback than Darnold. The Rams, conversely, give Darnold a Baker Mayfield kind of deal. Like, hey, you are playing well. Here's 2 years, 60, while we figure out who we're drafting in the coming years. So that's why you make the trade. It won't just be straight up. There will be picks coming to the Vikings, to the Rams with Darnold.
But I feel like if you get if the Vikings were to get Matthew Stafford, you're getting what he can be. Not I don't think that they're getting what he's actively been. Has he been all that impressive this season?
Well,
they're 2-5, right?
He has his 2 best players. Give him Justin
Okay,
Jefferson. or
but
give him
but
Hopkins.
we've
But
also
isn't-
had conversations about if you're a great quarterback,
Yeah.
you find a way,
Yeah.
man. Like that's part of it.
What
So
about
to me, it
Patrick
makes
Mahomes,
zero
man?
sense.
Patrick Mahomes has a lot of injuries. He's lost all his guys.
Yeah.
So that trade
Right.
just does not make any sense to
I
me
didn't say
at
I'm
all.
making the trade. Also, Kevin O'Connell was the quarterback's coach when Matthew Stafford won a Super Bowl with the Rams. He was in the meetings with them every day.
That's
he knows what
that's what it is.
obviously Sean
That's what it
McVay's
would
there
be.
too, but
No, but I'm saying
Yeah.
that's the connection, right?
Yeah.
And how shitty is it for Sam Darnold
I agree.
to like go
Yeah.
through all these ups and downs in your career, get tossed out of here, boom, boom, you end up finally back here
They're 5-1.
playing some great football, and like early in the season. You see the scenes from the locker room after the win when they're undefeated, and it's like they're all cheering on this guy. We've got our guy, and just like getting game balls, and he's the hero. And then 2 weeks later, because you lost against the Lions and it wasn't perfect, you haven't played perfect the last couple weeks. Now you're the subject of trade rumors, and you got to go home. And whether or not it's true or it's going to happen, you walk into that locker room, you look your coach in the eye, you see the GM out and watch him practice, and now you think, you guys are fucking scheming to get me
That's
out of here.
exactly it. It's like
And how am I supposed to now put my heart into this team and feel like we're
Yeah.
the brotherhood when you're trying to get me out of here and get someone in better to
you're
replace
good
me?
but not good enough is how this feels.
But if I'm Sam Darnold, I signed with Minnesota knowing my time was limited in general. Didn't think it'd be limited to 7 games in. And by the way, do you guys know what the Thursday night game is?
This Thursday?
Rams, Vikings?
tonight?
Rams and Vikings.
Oh, perfect.
So they're obviously
They can talk all about it all freaking game.
What if they trade him at halftime and they just switch locker rooms?
They do the
switch
That could
jersey
be
jerseys?
funny.
swap a little early.
I was in Minnesota when Nomar Garciaparra and Doug Mankiewicz got traded on the same day. And Nomar goes from the Red Sox to the Cubs. Doug Mankiewicz, who was Mr. Met at that time, Mr. Twin, been there for 10 years, walks across the locker room to the Red Sox and then now is a Red Sox, and a year later won a World Series. But anyway, that's weird when that happens. It doesn't happen too often. It's happened in the NBA before. I don't think it happens, but it could happen after this because you have 10 days. If there's truth to the rumor. It's a rumor.
I just think, again, it is just a rumor right now. There is no confirmation that we're going to see the Vikings trade for Matthew Stafford. I just think even the conversation being had is so disrespectful to Sam Darnold and what he's been able to do with this team. Yes, he's not playing perfect football, but quite frankly, nobody is right now. Started 5-0, took an L to a team that's playing like a Super Bowl team, so not a ton of people shocked there. Just even the conversations being had to me feel disrespectful and a huge slap in the face to Sam Darnold. And yes, he knew his time was limited in Minnesota, but that doesn't take away from what he's been able to do in this starting position. And again, it's one of those ballsy moves, the same one that Mike Tomlin just pulled, where it's like you're disrupting something that's working, which again, it ended up working even better with Russell Wilson starting. They looked really great, and Russell Wilson had a wonderful game, but I'm not sure that disrupting the offensive rhythm that this Vikings team finally has is a good idea for Matthew Stafford, whose team is 4th in their division and hasn't been all that impressive. And if you want to say, well, he's got an injured roster, a lot of quarterbacks do. And
yeah, they're 3-4.
You got to be careful what you wish for.
grass isn't
and
always greener on the other side.
it isn't. And sports are about your team, and it's
Yep.
about team chemistry, right? And a lot of times, like when you have an injury, like a guy like JJ McCarthy, you think he's going to be the next thing. He goes down, and all of a sudden, this is Sam Darnold's team, and everyone else around realizes that they have to step their game up, and that they, we have to rally around this guy, right?
Yep.
And this change that's happening, and all of a sudden, everyone starts to play better as a team. They come together because of the necessity and the reality of the injury, and blah 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 blah. You take that, you change, you pop that bubble when you make a trade like that, and you bring in a guy who technically may be better. He may have a better skill set, better track record, but is he going to fall in and be a part of that team chemistry?
It's going to click quickly too. It's
Right.
you're now week 7? Is it going to click quick? We don't now have that grace period like most new offenses with a new quarterback. They've got the preseason. They've even got the first few
He does
games.
know the offense. He does know the play calls, assuming Kevin O'Connell didn't completely reinvent the wheel with what he brought over from working with McVay and the Rams. So there's that.
And you also imagine Matt Stafford throwing to Justin Jefferson probably be pretty good.
I'm sure it would. But there's also I guess this is more of a question for you, and I'm sure you've had conversations with athletes, so you can talk about this as well. But I always do wonder if players ever get resentment for the front office in terms of moves that they make, or just like like again, I'm sure there would be players on the Vikings that are like, why would you do that? He's doing his job. What the hell? You usually don't get removed from your job or fired from your job. Let's just make it, a normal 9-to-5 lingo here. You don't get fired from your job unless you're underperforming. I wouldn't say Sam Darnold has been underperforming. Not even close.
Yeah.
You know who has been underperforming? Given whatever circumstances,
Matthew
Stafford. So that's where I'm like, okay,
yeah.
I'm not sure that the culture of that team and the locker room would be fully on board with that change.
Agreed. I mean, I was in the locker room when some changes were made that most guys didn't agree with.
Yeah.
Jake Plummer was benched for Jay Cutler. It was Jake Plummer's team. Yep. Jake led us to an AFC championship game the previous year. We lost that game because the whole team played poorly.
Yeah.
There was a feeling in the air we were going to lose it, and we lost it. And then the idea was that we need a better quarterback. It's always like you made it this far, but to make it over that hump, the quarterback has to be
satisfied.
Better. And it's always the quarterback is the guy you have to change if you're close but not quite there. It's this guy who's not good enough, and that's the decision that was made for Jake. So Coach Shanahan traded up to get Jay Cutler, right? And then once he got there, there was a drumbeat going on with people like Brandon that we want to see the young gunslinger. We're sick of Jake. He's not perfect. He's not perfect. He's not perfect. We were 7-3 going into a Thanksgiving game, and the word came down. I've told the story a million times that if we lost, he was going to get benched. We did lose that game in Kansas City on Thanksgiving, and all the media went to Jay's locker and wanted to interview him right after the game about if he was excited to get this start. And no one in our locker room liked that move, except maybe two of Jay's buddies who knew he was going to throw them the ball. But other than that, no, because Jake was our leader, and he was one of the dudes. He was out there laying it on the line. Everyone loved him. They loved his style of play. They knew he was down. They knew he would sacrifice every bone in his body for all of us. And so there is a ripple effect when that thing happened, because we were 7-4, like I said. We finished 2-3. Missed the playoffs, the playoffs the next 2 years. Everyone was fired. So you got to be careful with that. If this doesn't work for Kevin O'Connell and they miss the playoffs this year after starting 5-1, who knows what happens this week? And then and then again next year. I did not mean to sound
like Santa Claus just now, by the way. That was just me. That was me being reactive. But
and then they miss it again next year. You're fired. You're fired.
And you're stupid, quite honestly.
You're stupid and you're fired.
5-0 start, and then you miss the playoffs because you made a mid-season quarterback switch for a quarterback that was 4th in their division and 3-4,
and old as balls. I mean, he's old
as balls,
he only has 3 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Sam Darnold, here's his game log: touchdowns 2, 2, 4, 3, 0 in London against the Jets, only 1 against Detroit. So I think that's where they're like, has he already peaked for us is the concern versus what we think Stafford can be. And there's
had Pat Mahomes peaked?
Clearly not.
Zero touchdowns against the Niners. Should he be traded?
No, but his track record is certainly obviously different than Sam Darnold's. I'm not saying they're making this trade. The rumors out there, they don't get out there on accident. The Rams, I suppose there's a world where the Rams did this just to mess with the Vikings, and that's quite possible. But usually the people that are going to report this aren't going to only report one side of it. They're going to make sure they're checking with both sides. And that's who had it out there. The one that
are the people that break this news, Brandon?
Well, it's Ian Rappaport, it's Adam Schefter, it's Tom Pelissero. I didn't see who had this first, so we need to go back and even
I don't know who had it first,
but all those guys came out with it.
I need to double check that too, because Ryan Fitzpatrick tweeted at all of them trying to figure out for Thursday Night Football. It was kind of funny. It was like, "Hey, Tom, are you and Ian not friends anymore?" He's saying this. "Hey, Adam,
Doug
Ian
Kleeman."
Okay, but
he put out 23 hours ago that there was.
But somebody else is almost always going to have that before that dude has it. He's an aggregator that just says. So we have to find out if anyone of note had it that isn't Dove. But the Cooper Kupp rumor, he's 31 years old. We understand they're getting Puka back when they do. You can get some value if you think he's healthy. He hasn't been very healthy. So that feels more realistic that they would move on. And so then what's the value there? And I know you said you don't like trying to figure that out, but is it?
No, I just said I'm not good at that.
Well, we just saw Hopkins go for a 5th that could be a 4th if he plays really well.
So probably a third or a 4th.
A 4th that becomes a 3rd or a 3rd that becomes a 2nd makes sense. And maybe even they toss in a late round pick, a 6th or 7th anyway, as part of it. But who are the teams that make sense for Cooper Kupp? Someone said Buffalo. The Chiefs, why not?
Right.
Keep acquiring people. Although Cooper makes a lot of money. Minnesota, they do have Addison and Justin Jefferson. You add Cooper Kupp to that mix. That makes them pretty dynamic if you're trying to beat Detroit. Detroit, for as much as we like Tim Patrick, Cooper Kupp is an upgrade over Tim Patrick, I think, to go opposite of Amon-Ra and Khalif Raymond in that speed. I'm just trying to think of other teams where he makes sense. But
The Broncos.
As much fun as that would be, to have
Cooper Kupp as a Bronco?
As a Bronco, it doesn't make sense right now.
No. I think that you got to roll with these young guys and see what you got with them. It's not about this year. Sean Payton, in his first year in New Orleans, he did have a great year. They went 10-6. They went to the NFC Championship. But the second year, they went 7-9. Missed the playoffs. The next year they went 8-8, missed the playoffs. It was his fourth year in 2009 that Sean Payton won the Super Bowl after going 13-3. We may be in for, and I know you don't like this, Liv, because it's a long trip to Disneyland, but we may be in for a couple more years before the Broncos really plant their flag. As what would you sign up for it if it meant a Super Bowl in 2026? Is that too long to wait?
Yeah, does feel like it's too long.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well.
No, I will say I do think that the Broncos are making steps in the right direction, and I do think that in the midst of all this trade stuff, it's easy to look at what the Broncos are doing and say, "Oh, we could afford to have a little bit of this and a little bit of that." Yeah, I'm sure every team would love to play chess a little bit and go, "Yeah, he'd be a nice ad." But there is also that back end of trades that does disrupt the continuity that you're trying to build with this young group that the Broncos, Sean Payton, has going right now. And to me, there's no sense in disrupting that if every week we're seeing progress. It may not be as quickly as I want, but it's happening. I've found a new thing to appreciate about the Broncos every time they've played this season.
Well, one the other day, not only that defensive effort, Cody Barton, defensive player of the week. I guess we start our fourth quarter there.
Fourth quarter. 4.
But hold 4 so that we win the fourth quarter. They were doing that in New Orleans the other day.
That's what they do?
Yeah, some football teams do
Oklahoma does it. Apparently the Saints do it.
TCU, when there's a third down, TCU, we shake our 3 like this.
Yeah, that happens a lot. Fourth quarter.
The fourth quarter, like
we're gonna win the fourth quarter. And the Saints.
It's our time.
I don't think they even won the fourth quarter. I know they scored in the fourth quarter, but as did the Broncos.
I was on a shitty JV team in high school when a coach wanted to do that. I'm like, Coach, we're fucking losing by 30 points here. What? Why are we doing 4? Yeah. Why are we yelling 4?
We need to hold up 1 and 2 and 3. Like we need those.
Let's do this from the start because this isn't working.
Anyway, this was the fourth quarter.
Cody
Cody
Barton.
Barton.
Yep.
We had defensive player of the week a couple weeks ago in town, and Pat Surtain Jr. And now you get it again with Cody Barton without even needing to look. I know it is the first of his career.
Awesome.
He did not get it any of those years in Seattle when he's backing up Bobby Wagner, and I don't believe he got it last year. So a hell of a game for Cody Barton. And I saw where Doug Ferraro, who's with USA Today for a long time and does stuff with Athlon, he was really diving into the Zach Allen numbers, and he does kind of like an unheralded team of the week, offense and defense.
Yeah.
He had both Zach Allen and Cody Barton on there as unheralded players that obviously stood out, and this came out prior to him winning player of the week. So
I think we got to give some props to VJ and the system he's putting in that allows, because Alex Singleton, prior to Cody Barton, was doing this every week, right? Leading the team in tackles and just all over the place. He was second or third in the league in tackles last year with 177 tackles. And now Cody Barton's picking up where he left off and honestly playing even a little better. I don't know if it's better, but just both of them playing great.
And Justin Sternad's been good. They're trying to work Quan Alexander in. And had Cody Barton not been player of the week, I'm not saying this was happening, but there were some rumblings that maybe they're going to play Quan Alexander and Sternad a little bit together too and take Cody off the field. But you can't take the defensive player of the week off the field yet.
No.
And even you can keep working Quan in some packages and take Sternad off here and there. And I think they'll do that. I mean, that's what they tried to do. It wasn't the same coaching staff. But when Alex Singleton, Jonas Griffith, and Josie
What
Jewell,
is it, Liv?
No, I'm just in that slap happy mode right now.
Letting it wash over you?
I keep getting reactivated.
No, that's good.
I will say this about the Broncos. I saw this stat on the Twitter, which is taken over by Elon. I don't know if I like the For You, I'd stop too much on Elon shit, but he just will he shut up already? Elon.
And he's just in political mode right now.
I'm trying to see some sports stuff, dude.
Yeah, it's freaking
it's
too much.
But I saw this thing that the Broncos are tied for first in the league in fewest sacks allowed on offense.
Oh.
And they're first in most sacks on defense. They're handling it
A
up
lot
front.
of sacks over there.
Yeah,
That's what we know about Sean
29 sacks on defense, leading the league, or at least maybe it's second, and only 8 sacks given up through 7 games on offense.
And we do know Bo Nix is hard to sack. He's very mobile. He's very strong. He's very quick. So like that
But you know
definitely
what was-
helps. But that's
You know what's
incredible.
crazy though? That was the bill on Russell Wilson, that he was mobile and he could get out of the pocket. And
But
all
he's
that.
also the most sacked quarterback because he would hold the ball and run into sacks.
He was sacked 45 times last year and 55 the year before that. That's why he's gone. And the fact that, you know, Bo's getting rid of the ball and not getting sacked is a huge boon for this team. And I think it's a huge reason why Sean Payton likes him so much. Even though he's not putting up crazy numbers and he's not, you know, throwing for a lot of touchdowns, he's protecting the ball. He's getting out of the pocket when he needs to.
And he's gotten lucky. He hits Tyrann Mathieu in the chest. That doesn't get intercepted. There's been a couple of almost interceptions that haven't turned into interceptions yet. And so if you're not hurting yourself and you've got a top flight defense, you're going to keep yourself in games. They ran the ball for 225 yards. That was the most rushing in a game since I want to say 2013. And so if they can duplicate that, Carolina's the worst rush defense in the NFL at 162 a game.
They're bad.
It's just not good with what the Panthers are going to bring in. There's no reason they won't rush for another at least 162 if that's the average, if not go over that.
So
And
Andy Dalton got in a little car accident.
did see
right?
that. Did see that.
Is he
I did just see on
okay?
Twitter that he was walking into practice but didn't look dressed for practice. So
It said
he's
they
on
weren't,
his 2 feet. He's walking to the facility, but it didn't look like he
they
was
weren't
gonna be
taken
practicing.
away. Neither he nor his wife nor 3 kids and the dog, they were all in the vehicle, were taken by medical personnel for even a checkup, which means they're likely pretty
They're
okay.
good. Yeah.
Someone Paul C saying AFC West. Yeah, Shelley,
2037.
up for grabs in 2037 after Mahomes retires.
That is the thing about
Which
what's funny is everybody talks about Mahomes and Elway as a comparison, and I like that comparison and have made it as much as anyone. But do you know in 16 seasons how many times John Elway and the Broncos won the AFC West?
3.
7. But
That's a lot.
It's a lot.
That's half the time.
That's half. Patrick Mahomes is like 6 for 6 or 7 for 7 right now.
Yeah.
I think he's
That's
7 for 7,
crazy.
not counting the Alex Smith year in 16. So, or I'm not sorry.
He did
Yeah,
take over a
16,
better
so-
team though.
Yeah.
Than John Elway did.
But
So that matters. It's not all about, you know.
yeah, right. John
This
Elway,
guy.
right? John Elway in '83 came in with the bat. They got better because of Elway, and yeah. Nonetheless, he's off to a really good start.
Yes, he is. It was funny because, you know, Tom Brady was the announcer for that game.
Mhm.
And just to hear Tom Brady talk about Patrick Mahomes, because the conversation is going to get a little spicy in 5, 6, 7 years if Patrick Mahomes starts winning more Super Bowls, and it's like, who's the GOAT? Right now, it is Tom Brady, but you talk to some people and Patrick Mahomes,
If he's about to win, no one here wants to hear it. I get it. No, certainly nobody in Broncos country wants to see another Chiefs win. You have to appreciate his greatness. If they can find a way to
course.
win this year, and they become the first ever to win it in 3, and he's won 4 in 6 years or whatever that ends up being, 4 and 6, 7 years. That's also really damn impressive. And he will have something that no one else has, even if he doesn't win again. But if he wins 3, there's a very real chance that he has what happened with Brady too, where there is a lull because the roster turns over. But
The
then
2
at the
times he
end,
didn't win since he's been in the league was Rams and Bucks, right?
he lost to the Bucks. No, he did. They didn't make it against
I'm
the Rams.
saying
They lost
those
to
were the 2
Bengals.
Super
Yes,
Bowl
yeah.
winners, the years that
Yeah.
they didn't.
Yeah, exactly. So they won 1, lost 2, and now won 2.
you talking about Brady? Oh, no.
Mahomes.
Mahomes. Yeah.
Yeah, Joe Montana went 4 for 4, and he never threw an interception in a Super Bowl.
That's
I don't
That's
think
pretty-
Patrick has too many interceptions in the Super Bowls. He's
Joe
played in.
has 0, though.
That's pretty good.
so put some respect on his
Yeah,
name.
put some fucking
I'm
respect
not
on his name, motherfucker.
disrespecting Joe Montana. I think the more
Like
interesting
this.
conversation, we don't really have time to do it right now, is how many people would still draft other quarterbacks ahead of Tom Brady. And there's people who'll take Elway, they'll take Mahomes, they'll take Marino, they'll take quarterbacks ahead of Tom Brady.
What do you mean?
Like, we're drafting an all-time draft.
Who would you take?
I'd take Elway and Mahomes both ahead of Tom Brady.
Hmm.
Because I think I can do more with those guys.
Wow.
Who would you take over Tom Brady?
Joe Montana.
There you go.
Is that the only guy you take over?
Steve
him?
Young,
Yeah.
Brock Purdy. He's nice.
Yeah. Steve DeBerg.
Steve DeBerg. Jim
Jim
Druckenmiller.
Druckenmiller, yeah. Jeff Garcia.
That feels like a good place to end
AFC
it.
offensive player of the week was who, BK?
Believe it or not, you throw 5 touchdowns, you rack up a big win on Monday night, and Lamar Jackson, shocker, the AFC offensive player of the week.
Well, that's
Where
what
do you think? Where does Lamar rank right now for you guys? in
Like
terms of
all
quarterbacks?
times?
No, this season
If we're-
alone.
Well, he's top of the pops, man. He's top of the heap right now.
Just beneath Patrick
It-
Well, he's
Mahomes.
on pace for 4,000 yards throwing and 1,000 yards rushing. He's doing some crazy
Let's
shit.
do it like this. If the Broncos could call, because everyone wanted Bo Nix because they like where he is. If you could trade for Lamar or Patrick Mahomes right now to this Broncos team this year, because based on how they're playing this year,
I would go Patrick Mahomes
too.
because he beats Lamar head to head.
every time.
And there's the hump that the Ravens need to get over. It's in the playoffs. And
Derrick Henry may be the key to that.
maybe, yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if they make another move. Like, why wouldn't they call for Cooper Kupp?
yeah.
I'm not saying they won't, but if I'm the Ravens, you throw Cooper Kupp in there and give him that kind of safety
Ooh,
net
Cooper Kupp would look nice in
to
black
go
and
with
purple.
what Bateman can do, and obviously what Zay Flowers can do.
And they got
the
two tight ends too. But that might be a wealth of riches there. That might be too much.
Yeah, but if depending on I don't know what their cap situation is, but if they can afford Cooper Kupp and it costs you a second rounder,
yeah.
I'm thinking about it. And
When
the
did-
Ravens have shown they've drafted great between Ozzie Smith.
Would you
and
put
Eric
Jared
DeBrusk.
Goff in your top 3 right now?
No.
No, it's probably my
Top
top
5?
7.
Yeah, maybe. So it's Josh Allen. He hasn't thrown a pick yet. He has not thrown an interception yet. Patrick Mahomes, I guess, because he's 6-0, but his numbers aren't great.
Yeah.
Lamar. Who else? And then you're talking about like the Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold, like Jared Goff dudes who are doing that right now, who are playing well, but not traditionally, you know. Oh, there's what's his face from Green Bay. He's playing pretty well. Jordan Love.
Jordan Love, yeah.
Aaron Rodgers is not.
I think he's dead last.
Deshaun Watson is not.
Ooh, he might be dead last.
Yeah. There's a lot of guys making a lot of money who are not. And that's kind of cool. I enjoy that. When the guys is like, oh, this guy, no, you're not. You know, Matt Stafford is Matt Stafford making a lot of money?
$36 million.
He's in the bottom half right now, performing quarterbacks in
yeah.
the NFL, right? So right now you got, you know, the numbers. I mean, Geno's having a pretty good year. Brock
Mhm.
Purdy's having a good year, even though they're 3-4.
But you're getting some of those bargain guys compared to some of the. I mean, well, Tua is banged up, but the Joe Burrow is not playing great. Matt Stafford,
Yeah.
but you're getting great work out of Baker. Darnold at 10 million. Geno's in that kind of Baker range.
Yeah.
20, 30 million. Brock Purdy still is going to continue to be the bargain basement. The real question as it relates to Brock Purdy in that situation is, can the Niners justify, like, can they pay that dude $50 million?
They will.
There's gonna have to be some
They will.
losses, I think, outside.
I think
of Brock
Kyler's north
Purdy.
of 42, but he's playing, you know.
I see Brock as a guy who would take like a team-friendly deal to keep some of the bandmates together. And if the Niners don't end up making the playoffs or have a bad season,
That makes it easier to say, hey, we'll give you 40. Like Daniel
and it's
Jones
also,
kind of
but
deal.
it's also, I mean, it's easy to point to the injuries and stuff that you've had, and not Brock. What Brock has performed at a high level ever since he took over there.
If I'm Brock's agent, I'm certainly saying that. But then the argument against it, like, hey, we took Christian away because he got hurt. Deebo was dealing with his stuff. Ayuk's out for the year. We missed the playoffs. Our defense was still really good. Brock, you're good when things are going well.
Isn't that the same argument for Matt Stafford?
It is now, but they traded for Matt Stafford and gave him the deal they gave him based on what he had done to that point. And Cooper Kupp was healthy when he did it, so that made it easier. I'm just saying, if I'm John Lynch and I'm Kyle Shanahan, that's what I'm saying. We're giving you Daniel Jones deal. We're giving you 4 years, 160 million. Take it or leave it. You were making $800,000 last year, or hit the market and we'll see if somebody else wants to give you 50.
No, I don't think they want Brock to walk.
No, I think they say, we'll give you 40. Look at what you've done when things are great. You did not elevate Jawan Jennings and Jordan Mason to a playoff team. Now that Christian and Deebo and Ayuk are healthy this year, here's your 40 million, so we can afford to pay them. Again, you're making 800 last year. We love you. Great. You're going to do all the commercials. You'll whatever.
I'd be happy with 40 million.
I could get by. on that.
Shit, I'd love it.
Wouldn't it be nice?
It would
Okay,
be
she'd
real
love it.
nice.
Noted.
That's where we're headed with off field.
I agree with you on that one.
I think that was the final whistle.
Yep, that was. Game is over. We will be back again on Friday. We'll be remote because we've got some stuff happening here in the studio, but we will have another episode of Off Field for you on Friday. This has been an in-studio episode, however, presented by Viva and the Baking Room. Thank you so much for being here and hanging out with us. Much love. Let's go Broncos. Another show coming to you Friday. See ya. Bye-bye.